guys, welcome back to another episode of We Believe to You. This is Michelle.
And I'm Eric. I hope you guys enjoyed that Halloween special. I know you guys had been asking for the backstory on our grandfather, and well, that was it. I mean, it's kind of intense. He was an intense man, not always a very good man. Well, really, never really a good man, but that's just how it is sometimes. That's also why we had some of those experiences, and now you know.
Yeah, listening to those stories, I ended up having some pretty shitty dreams afterwards. Lots of satanic, demonic things going on, and I woke up in a panic, and yeah, it was pretty awful.
Real quick, I just want to introduce my friend Jason. He's going to be our interview. We're going to be interviewing him today, so I'm kind of excited to hear what he's got to say. But I just want to say, I prayed to Michael the Archangel, and I had no bad dreams. So it sounds like somebody should have prayed to Michael.
I probably should have. Cleared energy in the room and did all that stuff, and I didn't. And I was just like, I'm just going to go to sleep because I've heard these stories before, and it's fine. And apparently hearing the words Satan and demons and witchcraft and all this stuff over and over and over just deeply embedded in my brain and subconscious, and did not have the best dreams.
Yeah, you should have heard what Grandma was telling me afterwards, that we're messing with witchcraft and this and that. I'm like, I literally have never listened to anything satanic or witchcraft related in my life. So yeah, Jason, I guess introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are, what you do.
All right. Well, hey guys, my name is Jason. I live down in deep South Texas, Brownsville, where Eric lives and where Michelle used to live. And I live down here with my wife Cynthia and my 3-year-old Luke. And I'm an attorney. I do some pretty boring transactional stuff that we won't get into, but I enjoy it, and it's what do they say, that you never work a day in your life if you love what you do. I don't know. I think I've tested the limits of that, but it's good times.
All right, Jason. So one thing that I always like to ask is what a person's first paranormal experience was. Like, do you have one of those?
I do. I was probably about 7 or 8 years old, living here in Brownsville, and my family and I were over at an uncle's ranch, which, if you're from Brownsville, it's in the Tandy Road area near Alton Glore. And so, we'd be out there all the time. I mean, every weekend, and it was just a couple of acres, and all the kids could go and run around. And my uncle had this huge shed in the back, and so we'd always be playing back there. It wasn't well lit, it was pretty dark, and so we'd always just kind of try to spook each other. And one evening, a couple of my cousins and I were just back there goofing around, and I remember turning and looking over, and it was already nighttime. It was 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I remember turning over and looking at the shed, and I see this older gentleman in blue overalls with a red shirt, and he's on a rocking chair. And I immediately, pivoted and sprinted as fast as I possibly could to my uncle's house, and we all did. We all started screaming, and I remember running.
So you all saw it then?
Oh yeah. We all saw it, and I remember we ran back, and I figured it was just one of my older cousins or someone just trying to spook us.
Yeah.
But I remember going back into my uncle's house, and I was crying, and we were all crying. We were pretty scared, and the adults came outside, and there was nobody there, of course, and I just remember I was shaking, I was trembling, I was really scared. And when we left, my parents told me that they didn't want to talk about it there in the house because there were other friends around. But apparently my great grandpa, that was his signature outfit. That's what he wore, and he is always on a rocking chair.
Oh, I got chills.
Yeah. So my great grandpa Manuel, he and there's photos and everything. He wears blue overalls and the red shirts, with the collars and all that,
Wow.
and his boots and his cowboy hat and all that good stuff. And so that ranch is directly adjacent to my great grandfather's ranch, and so they would always go back and forth, um, and so it was pretty common back in the day. Now, I never met him, of course. He passed before I was born, but it was pretty common for him to go over and hang out in the shed and work with the tools of the tractors or whatever it was. Um, and so it was just a really interesting experience. Given that I didn't know much about him, and maybe at that point I didn't know anything about him, and I had no reason to just guess what he typically wore. And so that is, at least to my recollection, that's the first time I had a paranormal type experience.
So he was basically just watching over his great grandchildren as they played in that
Yeah,
area,
yeah,
I
I think
guess.
that's really all he was doing. I mean, he was just sitting down, just rocking his chair, hanging out. And I think I was more just frightened of the fact that I didn't expect to see somebody there, and it was really dark, and so you only see the moonlight, hitting that part of the property, and so it was just really spooky.
Was the rocking chair essentially like a ghost too, or is that chair like there and he just like the apparition just happened to like show up there, or was
Yeah,
like
no, there was no chair, and I
no?
remember there were, I mean, there were several weeks of struggles with sleep and all that kind of stuff. And I remember having to sleep in my parents' bed for weeks or maybe months now. I don't know. It's a little blurry in my memory, but I remember I was just really spooked, and I couldn't even go to the kitchen at night without my mom being out there with all the lights on. It took a while to shake that one off.
Yeah, I mean, I know when our grandmother passed away, our maternal grandmother, I had nightmares with her for I had a few of them, but she was never a mean woman to me. But I guess it's just that you know dealing with death and learning just those things as a kid, it can be difficult, and I guess your mind is just trying to process it. You know what I mean? Or maybe I saw her in my dream and thought she was scary because I knew she had passed away and she was there, but she was just probably trying to, I don't know, comfort me or something.
Say
I don't know.
hi, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's like the scariest thing, especially as a kid. It's like I'm seeing something that is there, but it's not supposed to be there. And then when I look back, now all of a sudden it's gone. Like just that whole like, what the hell is happening? I can only imagine is like super overwhelming, especially as a kid.
Right, right, and especially as a
Yeah.
kid who had never really experienced much, um, and so I don't recall if I had maybe seen some kind of horror movie or anything of that sort that would have maybe planted a seed. I don't think so. I don't think there was anything unique about that day. It was just, I mean, we were
Hmm.
there every weekend, like I said. I've heard a lot of stories about um, paranormal experiences and over at my grandparents' ranch, which was right next door. Um, and so, it doesn't surprise me that I experienced something at my uncle's ranch. But why that day and why my great grandfather, I don't know. But I guess it's good to know. I mean, now in retrospect, it's comforting to think that he was there, and we do have a very you know, well, back then we had a very close knit family, um, and like I said, we were always hanging out together, and that was true even for my parents, my grandparents, great grandparents. I mean, the family was always together, and so it makes sense why he would have been there, and so I guess it gives me comfort knowing that he cared about his great grandkiddos, while we were there being little dumbasses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. And then after that, was there anything else that you had as a young kid? So that was your first one, and then did you have any other experiences or more frequent experiences after that as a kid?
The only other one that I recall, and it also involves family, and it's along the same vein. It was somebody watching over us, I believe. Um, we were at my house, the house that I grew up in, here in Brownsville. So we weren't at a, the uncle's property. Um, and I remember walking out of the bathroom and walking down the hallway past my parents' room, and I saw an older lady just standing by the foot of their bed. But it was in my peripherals. And so I remember thinking, oh, it's my mom, you know, and she was in the nightgown or whatever, but it was in my peripherals. And so I keep,
I was about to ask, was she wearing a
yeah,
nightgown?
yeah.
White.
I don't know if that's why.
White nightgown with long black
No,
hair. Typical.
no, I don't recall the color, and I don't recall if no, it certainly wasn't black hair. Um, so I remember
Okay.
walking over to the living room, and I see my mom sitting there, and I started thinking, "Oh crap, who the hell was that?" In the bedroom. And so I go back and I take a look, and there's nobody there. And I was like, "Okay, maybe I'm just going crazy. Maybe it's a shadow or whatever." So I kind of chalk it off, and that was in the evening. The following day, in the morning, my mom's crying, and I was like, "What's going on, mom?" And she's like, "No, it's like nothing's wrong. I really sensed that your grandma was in my room yesterday at the foot of the bed, just looking at me, And I was like, "What?" And so and she was in tears, but like it was fine, But she just said she was crying.
Like it was again a
Yeah, she
comforting
was crying just
thing.
because she missed her, and this was actually my
Right.
paternal grandmother. So it wasn't my mom's mom. This was my father's
Right.
mom, but my mom was very, very close to her. I mean, yeah, that was
Yeah.
really her mother. My mom didn't have a close relationship with her mother growing up or anything. Um, so she was very close to her, and my grandma really protected her. And so I remember she told me that, and I just got these chills. And I told her, I was like, Mom, I swear I saw someone last night, or if I didn't see him, I certainly felt a presence, and I felt like there was somebody there. And so that was another experience where I just um, I don't think I was scared that time around. I think it was just very, yeah, kind of comforting. Now did I feel spooked out? I mean, yeah, I did. Did I probably have a few nights of sleeplessness and needing lights on? Yeah, I'm sure I did. But again, in retrospect, it's just family doing their thing. Just watching out for us, and so I'm good with that. And my mom's had a lot of experiences in her life, and so I think for her that was a good one. Yeah, she actually felt good, and I think um, for her, she didn't want her to leave. I remember her telling me that she started crying because she felt her leave, and she was just gone, like the presence was gone, and that's what brought her to tears. She was just like, man, I really wish she was still here. And so and again, I wasn't close to my grandma. I don't remember her. She passed when I was maybe 3, and so I didn't really know her, and but from what I hear, she loved me and took care of me, and 3 years that she had with me, she was a great grandma. So I think I'm just happy when things like that happen, because it's nice to know that their spirits are still here and they're still taking care of us, and yeah, it's a nice thing. I think it's positive. And yeah, and that's the other big experience that I recall from when I was a kiddo.
And how did your mom react when you told her that you had felt a presence, or that you had seen somebody, or somebody there, or a woman there by her bed?
I remember her trying to explain to me at that point. This was a couple of years later, so I was still a kid. I wasn't
Okay.
maybe not a teenager yet, but I was maybe 10 or 11. And I remember her response was to just explain to me kind of what we've discussed, as far as family, in the afterlife potentially coming back, and it not always being a bad thing. It can be a great thing.
Yeah.
So I think she explained that to me, and I was like, okay, and because I was pretty shaken up, and again, maybe not scared, but certainly shaken up, and um, and so I think she was just trying to explain to me, like, hey, look, it's not always a bad thing. You don't have to be scared of ghosts, you don't have to be scared
Right.
of
That's good
spirits.
parenting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you fast forward to today, and I just scare my wife all the time and try to scare my kid. And but anyway, yeah. So I think my mom is just, I mean, that's the way she is. She's always got that right answer.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we discussed in well, at these episode one, where her parents kind of just pretended like they were crazy, like no, like you didn't actually experience that, or oh, it was the wind, or it was making excuses for what it probably actually was. So it's really refreshing to hear, your mom saying like, you know what, yeah, sometimes no, there is an afterlife, and your family comes back and visits, and you've just been lucky enough too that you've had, as even though they were scary, positive experiences because it was family watching over you guys. So lucky you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it has been the case for
Later
all of my
ones,
relatives. Oh well,
yeah.
and later ones, yeah, yeah. But what's interesting is me personally, I do think they've all been positive, or at least most of them. Or if I
Mm-hmm.
have had negative ones, I've done a really good job of scrubbing my memory.
Yeah.
But I know that my father and my mother and other family, they've had other experiences that were you know dark and yeah, yeah, dark, negative, and all that. So I know that's the thing that's happened. And um, uh, you know, I guess after that experience, I really became a teenager and kind of went through that growing phase. And through those years, I started to really question, just um, whether this stuff was real. And I remember looking back at those experiences and trying to you know come up with an explanation. And
Yeah.
I think as just depending on how you're raised and who your friends are and all that kind of stuff, and uh, your beliefs kind of change. And so after that experience, I really don't have something that I recall that I went through during middle school or high school or really even college. I mean, I kind of just anything that I did experience, I always chalked it off, or I always, had some kind of explanation for it. Um, and so I went through this pretty, long period where I didn't really believe, which is kind of, uh, it's interesting because I had these experiences when I was a kid, and I look back at them now, and there really shouldn't be a reason why I wouldn't want to believe. I went through a pretty lengthy period, which is also kind of tied to uh, just kind of my belief system in general. Even with regard to religion and things like that, I struggled to believe, and again, just anything that wasn't tangible and visible and I couldn't see and hear and all that, I kind of pushed it all away, you know, and it wasn't until just a few years ago that I kind of took a turn again, and it was because things happened that at least I feel are were tangible. Yeah, there were things that I experienced that were very much real to me. And I was like, okay, then I was probably wrong. Because if whatever the experience is very real to that person, but just because they don't have proof of it, they don't have a recording, they don't have whatever, they can't press replay on their experience and bring you into it. And, it's just not possible. Of course, there are recordings of a lot of things, but just because you don't have one doesn't mean that, you didn't go through it. And now I think these days I do believe that, you know, uh, people go through a lot of different experiences. Um, and so I'm definitely more open-minded now and certainly believe.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that's, I love everything you're saying because that's something that in other episodes that we've always, said, or that's the reason why we do this.
You nailed it. Like
Yeah,
exactly what you
exactly
just
what
said.
you said is exactly why we do this. You know what I mean? So I mean I love that, and then I also love that you said I do believe as a response to the, our we believe to you, and obviously you do believe. So
Yeah, like
that was
I'm
perfect,
a
man.
lawyer. I just give direct answers. Okay. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, perfect, bro. I loved
I got
it.
to give more context other than just getting on the podcast and saying, yeah, I believe. Thanks, guys. And
Yeah, yeah, of course.
yeah, it's I think it's important just to kind of give that context um, uh, and I've never really talked about this stuff, to be honest, other than with uh, my wife, and I think sure.
Can I ask? Sorry, can I ask why?
I guess for the longest time it's just because I didn't believe, and I didn't think it was even worthy of any kind of in-depth discussion. I didn't think that it was. I mean, I just thought it was just kind of just all bullshit. I mean, to be honest, I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not, and it wasn't until again just 3-4 years ago that that kind of changed for me. And it's fine. You can look back and say, oh yeah, I was wrong. Um, and I think there's obviously a lot of people out there that do believe and don't believe, and um, but as far as why I never talked about it, I guess because I was just that guy that people just didn't believe, and so why even bother talking to this guy? He's just going to be an asshole about it, and just say that there is some kind of other explanation, you know, and that's just not beneficial for anybody. Like, now granted, that's a lot of what I do in my line of work, right? I'm always just like questioning everybody and trying to get to the truth of the matter, but you can't, you can't force somebody to tell you something that's not true, right? If they went through an experience, I mean, you can push and push and push, but if they went through it, they went through it. And so you can come up with a list of 100 different other explanations for what somebody experienced, but you can't. Sometimes you just can't explain it. And I guess that's kind of what I've now realized. Um, and again, I mean, it's kind of tied into my religious beliefs now, and I which I am a believer, and I'm religious now, and so yeah, it was just an interesting period in my life, where uh, I think you just kind of you have to go through some things in your own life to really get to that point where you believe and you truly believe, and can finally accept that some things just do not have an explanation, and that's okay. There doesn't always have to be an answer. You don't always have to have, evidence. You don't always have to have, that tangible, visible, uh, recording or whatever it may be to prove up something. It's just okay that it happened, and that somebody is telling you about it. And sometimes it is just as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I know you've already mentioned it a couple times. What I mean, if you're willing to talk about it, what's that incident that's happened either 3 or 4 years ago that's kind of started making you become a believer again? I guess you could say.
Sure. So over the last 3 or 4 years is really when that change has happened. Uh, I guess just to provide some context so that everything kind of makes sense. My oldest brother, Jesse, he passed away in September of 2016 from a pretty rare um, disease that basically causes inflammation of your blood vessels
Mm-hmm.
and kind of just attacks your different organs and stuff. And anyway, so he was really young, he was 41. Um,
Wow.
and, he left 4 children and um, a couple of grandchildren. And so we were living in Austin at the time. And, we um, thankfully got to see him about a month before he passed over
Mm-hmm.
in Houston. And he went to Houston to try to get some help since the disease was already attacking his heart. They went to a specialist in Houston who could maybe do something, but they weren't able to. So anyway, so yeah, he passed in September of 2016, and um, probably like a week later, or I really don't know how long after, but pretty soon after, my wife and I found out that we were expecting, and so it was, just right after he was, he passed, and we were mourning and stuff, and so a lot of emotions during that period. But anyway, we kind of went through the process, and a few months later, we found out that it was going to be a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that we had gone back and forth for months and months, probably years, with baby names, and how that goes, and so we could never agree on anything. And the day that we found out we were having a boy, like 10 minutes later, we had the name,
Yeah.
and what we ended up doing, it just kind of came to me, in the moment. But I knew that I suddenly knew in that moment that I wanted to uh, use my brother's middle name, which is Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
And Cynthia and I really we liked the name Luke, and uh, we decided to name my son Luke Anthony. Um, and so
Both
we
saints.
yeah, and so we had Luke, and my brother's passing really, it just really hit home. I didn't get a lot of time to spend with him, but we were always very close. I mean, he was always there taking care of me when I was little. He always babysat me, and he was kind of a crazy one, to be honest. He's the guy who introduced me to real music. He got me into Metallica and Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue, and
Got us off of that NSYNC shit.
yeah, exactly. And
Backstreet Boys.
well, speak for yourself, Connor. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, I uh, so back then my brother had I mean, I must have been, gosh, I don't know, 10, 12 years old. I don't know how old I was, but my brother was like, you gotta stop listening to that boy band garbage or whatever, whatever was in at that time. And
Yeah.
so he had this awesome cassette tape, as you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
Connor, aging ourselves here, but he had this cassette tape briefcase type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it holds like whatever 36 cassettes, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it's like all sorts of great bands, and I had a boom box, a stereo, and I remember him playing that for me, and I was like, this is pretty intense, but I like it,
Yeah.
and it took like not even a day or two for my parents to start getting upset over the whole thing, and they're like, what are you listening to? And then of course then my brother gave me this um, Motley Crue chain. uh it's like a cross with a snake around and stuff, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and so I went to school and I thought I was so cool with the Motley Crue chain, and and then that chain ended up disappearing, and I actually just found out a few weeks ago that my parents hid it from me back then, and my
Nice.
mom just found it because they got a new refrigerator, and she had hid it. She had taped it on the cabinet above the
Oh my gosh.
refrigerator.
Oh
Yeah.
wow,
So
dude! They really
anyway,
went out of their way to
yeah,
get
yeah,
rid of
yeah,
that thing.
yeah. That's like its own podcast right there. So anyway, but we had that kind of relationship, and he was just big brother, and he did all sorts of crazy things, but he was always there for me. And as I grew older, um, um, I wouldn't say we purposely became distant, but he became a father, and I was just going through high school and college and all that, and you just kind of try to stay in touch as much as you can, but you never lose that bond, of course. Um, and so his passing was really hard. I mean, it's still really hard. It was only 4 years ago now, and it's it's a work in progress. And uh, what was really cool though is when we were still living in Austin, and I think Luke was about to be born. My nieces and nephew, they they sent me a package, and I have the video of this. They sent me a package, and they had coordinated with Cynthia, and um, I got this package in the mail. I opened it up, had no clue what it was, and they actually gifted me that cassette box with all of his
Oh
cassettes
Oh.
with all
wow!
the music. Yeah, and I still
Oh, you're
have
gonna
it.
make me cry, dude.
Yeah, yeah, I still have it. It's there, it's there in the closet, and look at it and play the cassettes. I try not to play them too much because I don't want to destroy them,
Hmm.
um, but it's awesome, and I have that, and it's precious to me, and it's got a B104 sticker on it, and you
Oh
know, for
wow.
anyone who lives
Damn,
for anyone who
dude.
grew up in the
Wow.
valley,
Jesus.
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Back before it was Wild 104, man.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
good old days.
It wasn't wild back then. It was just,
Yeah.
you know, just a B apparently. Anyway, so I have that, you know, now, and that was great. I remember I broke down, and you know, it just meant a lot, you know, and the fact that they passed that along to me was great. Um, and so anyway, you know, we moved down here. Um, the following year, my nephew, who's named Austin, he graduated from high school, and we had a graduation dinner. Um, and it was just here at a, you know, Pizza Hut here in Brownsville, and um, so it was, you know, my parents, my wife, Luke, um, and then my sister-in-law and my nieces and nephew, and uh, we're there, and you know, the waiter brings over the food and all that good stuff, and Luke was right in between Cynthia and myself in the high chair, and he must have been, I don't know, maybe a little over a year old. I mean, he was already sitting up in a high chair and all that. So,
Mhm.
um, you know, we're there just talking and eating, and Luke just starts cracking up, like just laughing hysterically. And I mean, and it was like intense laughter, you know, like somebody was making him laugh, and he was looking right above my sister-in-law. And there was nobody there. There was nothing there, nothing at all. And he's just staring right over my sister-in-law, and like a little bit to her right.
Mhm.
And then he would, you know, he was laughing in waves, like he was just like cracking up, and then he would calm down, and then it would kind of build up again, like, you know, like somebody's playing peekaboo
Making
or something.
faces or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember we all started looking around at each other, and we're like, "The hell is he laughing at?" You know? And Cynthia and I were looking at him, and we're like, "What are you looking at, baby?" And you know, and he just ignored us, and he just kept cracking up, you know, and he was like crying from laughter. And I remember that moment, like several of us got pretty emotional because it really felt like in that moment, you know, my brother was there, you know, and that was uh, you know, that moment for me, I couldn't shake it off. You know, it really, it was really impactful. And I remember I started looking at Luke differently. You know, I started thinking like, can he see your uncle? I mean, what's going on here? You know, and uh, and I remember kind of, you know, praying and talking to my brother, and I was like, uh, funny of you to show up, you know, here at Pizza Hut, and not, you know, say hello to the rest of us, you know,
Mhm.
and because I sure wouldn't mind, you know, seeing him again, you know, I'd love to, but um, so it was just it was a crazy dinner. I mean, I remember we left, and we just couldn't stop talking about it, you know, and so fast forward a couple of gosh, it must have been just a few months later. I was having a really hard day, or maybe a hard week, and I was kind of at a low point. And I remember Cynthia wasn't even here. I was just here by myself taking care of Luke. And I went to the closet, and Luke was right behind me, and he's just there playing with our clothes or whatever. Um, and I brought down that cassette tape storage box, and I just, you know, I was kind of like praying and talking to my brother, and I was like, man, I could just really use some help right now. You know, things have been kind of hard, and sorry guys.
Yeah, I think we're all
Dude,
crying right now, man.
yeah,
You're
my
Yeah,
eyes
good.
sorry.
sweating
You're
really bad.
good.
It's okay, dude. It's okay.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fine.
So,
It's good.
um,
Take your time, man.
all right. So, if he was here, he would just hit me in the back of the head. So anyway, so I was there, and I brought this cassette tape box down, and I was just looking through it, you know, and I was like, just wanting to feel him again, you know, um, and you know, he just always had this way about him of like, you know, just don't worry about it, you know, it's gonna be all right, you know, that's the way he always was growing up, you know. Um, so, anyways, I was just kind of praying and talking to him, and suddenly I just felt this. I just felt like it was just winter. All of a sudden, it was just so cold, and I just felt this crazy sensation go through my body, and I was like, holy shit, you know, I was like, is he here? And Luke comes up to me, and he like pats me on the back, and I look at him, and he's just staring right at me, which he really didn't do much of. You know, he really didn't stare. Uh, you know, he's always kind of had a thing with eye contact, and he was staring right at me, and then he just hugs me really tight, and I just broke down. I just lost it,
Oh,
and in that moment, I was like, "Thanks, man." I was like, I really needed that, and that really. Uh, that was just such a huge moment, in my life, and trust me when I say that I needed it in
Yeah.
that moment, and ever since then, we've always, Luke has this just really really tight relationship with my father, and from time to time he still does the laughing thing. He's laughing when he sees my sister-in-law or my father, just right next to them. It's not even them. He's not looking at them. He just looks right next to them and he does it, and now it's just like it's almost like we're used to it, but like we know that my brother's just there playing with him, and I know
Yeah.
that if he was here, he would just love him so deeply and always, play with him and do things like that. So um and I guess something else I forgot to mention. um Luke's first name, we just chose it because we liked it, and for religious reasons as well. But we did at one point we made the connection that the last time I saw my brother was at St. Luke's Hospital in Houston, and that was the last time I saw him alive. And uh, you know, it's just crazy to think that there's all these little connections, and maybe the former me would have just found some reason to just chalk it off as coincidence or whatever. But yeah, these days uh, it's just very different for me having gone what I've gone through, recently, and I can't say that I've had other experiences, but that was more than enough for me. And
Yeah.
you know, um, I really needed that in that moment, and the fact that it happened. And sometimes you just know. I mean, there is no explanation. There's no rational, reason that you can see and touch, and you just know. And in that moment, I knew, and uh, that was just a huge life changing moment for me.
Wow, dude.
ooh.
I mean,
That was powerful.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was amazing, dude. Like, it's just, I was like literally having to try to fight back tears because I was like, don't lose it, don't
You did
lose
do a good
it.
job, brother. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
saw
I
them.
just,
Yeah,
I couldn't help it, man.
yeah. I held it together until I just, I haven't really, um, whenever I really think about him, and I'm just here by myself, I get emotional. But at that moment, I mean, I haven't really replayed it, I think, to that extent until now, and so it just kind of hit me again, and
yeah,
um, but even though he's not here physically anymore, I certainly believe that he's here with us in spirit, and
There's no denying
it's
of
just
that.
course, man.
yeah, there's just a lot of comfort in knowing that, and um, yeah, it's something I just carry with me, and I think it's something that gives my father and mother a lot of comfort as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of what's happened in my life, over the last couple of years that it's just really changed my perspective on things, and I think I'm just much more comfortable now. I you gotta. I mean, to believe it just has to be unconditional, especially when you experience it. I think had it been 10 years ago, maybe I would have said, "Oh, that's just all in my mind" or whatever. But I don't think that's the case. And so anyway, I'm just grateful that it's something I was able to experience.
no, yeah, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we appreciate you coming on here and sharing that with us, dude. Like, it's, I don't know. I just feel like you drove home every single thing that, every single reason why we started this podcast. Like, you literally, it's like, I feel like you had a checklist and you were just like, okay, this, and you literally fucking hit every single thing. Like,
We did not pay him to say the things that he
no,
did.
we did not. Like, I mean, honestly, like
Uh,
we all three of us got emotional. You know, it's not something we planned to do on this podcast, and
Ever.
right.
no, and how did I can't like tell you how much I appreciate you coming on here and talking to us about those things, and just again, like unprompted, just nailed exactly why we do this or why we're doing this. You know what I mean?
Right. Mhm.
And one thing that I really appreciate is so many people have talked about it in previous episodes. So many people associate the paranormal with negative things or like bad things or scary things, and even though like at least those first two experiences kind of like spooked you out, like but there's still such beautiful positive experiences. You know what I mean? And there's there's beauty and hope and positivity and light and love in the paranormal, and it's not all like demons and
Scary
scary
things.
things. Yeah, and this, I mean, your
Right.
stories are a perfect example of that. And so yeah, I'm so glad that we were able to hear your stories.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, and happy to have shared them. It's obviously uh, something I've just held pretty closely, over the last few years, but um, it's certainly great to share, my experience, and hopefully that'll motivate others to, not only share their experiences, but just try having conversations when you need it.
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
I think that's kind of what I learned from all this is, and I do it pretty much daily now, but I have those conversations with him, because I believe that he's still there and that I have that support. And, I think there's just a lot of benefit to that. And so that's what I would encourage everyone to do, is have those conversations and, believe, because,
Mhm.
I think it's real, and I've experienced it.
It's
Yeah.
a lot, dude. I'm still trying to fight back tears right now, dude. To be honest with you, like it's amazing. So I know this isn't paranormal related, but I mean anybody that we have on here, because they support us, we want to support them, and if people want to support them as well, is there anything, Jason, that you want to share, or your website, or how you can help people as far as you being an attorney and stuff?
Yeah, sure. So I primarily practice real estate and business law. So if you've got a real estate problem, or perhaps are starting up a small business, I do help out a lot of entrepreneurs and people who are just starting up, who may not know what step one is. And so I'm happy to give some consultation time to help people out, and I'm always looking out for the little guys. So y'all can reach me at jrioslaw.com. That's Rios, Rios. Um, and or you can email me, Jason at jrioslaw.com. I'd be happy to help out.
We'll put that in the show notes as well
Okay,
for
Yeah.
anybody who wants to reach out.
Yeah, and
sweet.
in YouTube, I'll put the link and everything. And guys, sorry, we're not sponsored, so no discount codes.
Yeah.
Alrighty, man.
Right.
Well, thank you again, dude. I appreciate you. I wish I could give you a hug, virtual hug. Thank you for being on, and yeah, bro, you
Yeah.
fucking
Thank you.
making me cry,
I
asshole.
know. I was not planning on getting emotional, but yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on. It was a great conversation, and feels pretty good to talk about this stuff. So really
Good,
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
good.
man. Well, whenever you want, dude, we're here, bro.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys.
Damn, guys, I did not expect to
Cry?
cry. Like, I was literally fighting back tears, and like when he was talking, I was like, and then like finally,
Yeah.
like it started rolling down my face. I was like, God damn it, man, Jesus.
That's what broke me. I was keeping it together pretty well, and then I looked over at you on FaceTime, and I just saw this tear come down your cheek. I was like, "No, I'm done. I'm done."
Yeah.
And I just started
And
sobbing
I
as
don't know
well.
if that's what I don't know if the same thing. And I guess we should have asked Jason, but I don't know if the same thing happened to him because he was holding it together, and then like I wiped my tear, and then that's when I felt like he kind
Everyone
of
broke.
I was like,
Everybody
damn it,
broke.
I ruined
uh,
it.
no,
Yeah,
no, no. But that made it really real and
yeah,
raw. And like I told him, like I so appreciate his stories. We haven't had stories like that, and this was such a beautiful, different side to the paranormal. Like I told
hmm
him, it's I'm grateful for his stories. Those are great.
Yeah, and that's not to diminish anybody that we've interviewed so
For
far.
sure.
It's just that it's different. It's not what we've heard so far, and it's beautiful in the sense that like you said earlier, it just shows people that
there are two sides to this.
Yeah, or like his mother said too, like it's not, sometimes it's family and they're here for us, and it's not something to be afraid of, so
yeah,
I loved it. I mean,
those are great.
Yeah, great story. So
Whew,
yeah,
well,
guys, if you want to share something like that with us, I mean, we're here. That's our jam. And what we want to try and do too is like on the first of the month, maybe do written in stories. So like I said, we have some, with what we have, we can probably put an episode together, but we definitely need more from you guys so that we can,
keep them coming.
keep that going and make that like a monthly thing. Like, yeah. So send them in, again, English to Spanish. We'll translate, do our best to not butcher it. And if you want to reach us, our Instagram is at We Believe DU Podcast. Our Twitter is at WBDY Podcast. On Facebook, we're We Believe DU with a question mark. Or you could also reach us at We Believe DU Podcast on Facebook. And our YouTube channel is also We Believe DU with a question mark. Our episodes are up there. And email us too. That's also webelievedu@gmail.com. Subscribe, hit the notification.
And don't forget,
We believe.
No.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going into that.
No. Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. If you guys leave us a review, we'd love to read it on the next episode.
Alrighty, guys. Well, do it, right? We want to hear it. We want to hear everything because we believe.
Do you?